Okada ISO Overview, FGO Codex Entry 5-1. Okada ISO is a 3-star assassin class servant in Fate Grand Order. He specializes in single-target arts damage against human enemies. This is done through high critical damage from his buffs and his single-target noble phantasm Shimatsuken. He has multiple buffs, specifically increasing his damage against human attribute and humanoid enemies, in the form of his first skill and a modifier on his NP. Put all this together, and you can see that ISO, though a bit niche, can do explosive amounts of damage if you manage to get the timing right. In addition, with his evade skill and critical arts cards charging him quickly, he can hang around and deal some consistent damage even once he's on cooldown. Okada ISO Strategy, FGO Codex Entry 5-2. ISO has a rather single-minded approach. He wants to line up his first skills, one turn buff with his NP, and preferably an arts card or two with a high crit chance. The NP stacking human killing buffs will make it far stronger, especially if you buff him for NP damage or arts damage. And the critical cards after should do great damage on their own, while also giving him an instant charge. Now, this is not without some possible issues. First off, the target has to be humanoid, otherwise his damage buff is non-existent. You also can't miss the crits on the cards, or the charge, and damage will be significantly less impressive. So to these ends, you may need to find more ways to generate C-stars and check what enemies you are fighting before you field ISO. Okada ISO Craft Essences, FGO Codex Entry 5-3. Okada ISO works well with several craft essences, though generally, you want to play around 3 buffs: arts card effectiveness, NP damage, and critical damage. ISO is a damage-dealing niche servant. You want to lean into his strengths with these. You don't want normal damage up on him because it will not stack multiplicatively with his human damage buff, so you want other types of damage increases. Preferably more arts and NP, as he already does a lot of critical work on his own. A Black Grail will work, and flat arts buff from several craft essences are good as well, but keep an eye out for some of the event craft essences. Many of them offer the buff we are looking for in addition to critical star gen and NP gen, which, while you may not need in every team comp, could be very useful. Also, I must recommend a fragment of 2030 for a support in your lineup to keep star gen going through the fight. Okada ISO Team Composition, FGO Codex Entry 5-4. ISO works well with art support servants, of which there is no shortage at the higher rarities. At the lower rarities, it can be more difficult, but is still doable. For lower rarity options, Mozart, Shu Fu, Zhang Jue, and Hans Christian Andersen. These are all viable options, but many are of limited help or are inconsistent. At the higher rarities, you are a bit spoiled for choice. Waver, Tamamo no Mei, Altria Caster, Lady Avalon, and so many more are all viable and frankly extremely effective choices to assist ISO. Just remember that ISO has one good burst of damage on targets, so time your attack buff with them, and make sure to generate some critical stars to keep him from missing out on his full damage and his NP charge. Okada ISO Leveling and Stats, FGO Codex Entry 5-5. As far as leveling up ISO, he's pretty cheap and straightforward. As a 3-star, he does not take up many resources and caps out at level 70 without grails. His rank-up quest is also very easy to access, as it only requires completing Fuyuki. Stat-wise, ISO is pretty standard for a 3-star with slightly above average damage, which works well for Masters, as that is his most important stat, and probably the one you could put some extra hero crystals in, if you were so inclined. As far as the order of leveling his skills, his first skill takes priority, then his third, and then his second. They all have useful buffs, but the order I just mentioned is how important they are to his gameplay.